So this is basically the same thing that we've been doing, or, well, I shouldn't say been doing, because we only have done one example. So I'm going to say this is f of x, and this is g of x, right? And we know that f is the label or name for this stuff right here. We know that g is the label or name for this stuff right here. And since f is a function of x, we say f of x. And since g is also a function of x, we say g of x. So these rules only apply if they have the same variable. It would be silly to plug in t for x. Does that make sense? So when they say g of f of 4, what they really mean is, I'm going to do a first, so we'll do a first. They're saying g of f of 4. So then here, I'm going to write down what g is. But wherever there's an x, I'm going to put a set of parentheses. So I'm going to give you a second to write that down, and then I want you to see and compare that I'm going to, wherever there is an x, I put parentheses. So if you look at g, and I really want you to process this, it's x squared minus 4. Right? Does that make sense? So what do you think I'm going to plug in right here in these sets of parentheses? F. Okay. Now I am going to change one thing though. Instead of it being f of x, I'm going to make that to, or I mean instead of being f of 4, I'm going to put the x. Sorry. So over here, I'm going to say f of x. And then when we're done, guess what? We're going to say x equals 4. Okay? All right. So then the next line, I'm going to say g. And it seems like a lot of work, but it's not. Well, what is f of x? Well, f of x is this stuff right here, right? So I'm going to say the square root of 2x plus 1. Oh, that is just bad penmanship. I can do better. So this is the square root of 2x plus 1. And then this over here, I'm basically going to do the same thing. I'm going to say 2x, the square root of 2x plus 1 squared minus 4. Okay? And so I just want to point out that we're just taking f of x, this is f of x, and we're plugging it in wherever there is an x into g of x. So this becomes f of x, and then this becomes f of x. And then wherever we have an f of x, we're going to plug in what f of x actually is, which is this stuff here. Okay? Now before I move any further, is there anybody that isn't seeing where we're getting the stuff from and how we're plugging it in? So then what I need to do to finish the equation is I just need to, what happens when you square a square root? In other words, this is the second root of all this stuff. Well, when you square a square root, you're just left with the stuff underneath the square root, right? So this just becomes 2x plus 1. And then we tack on our minus 4. So then I get 2x, what's 1 minus 4? Minus 3. So g of f of x is 2x minus 3. Isn't that neat how that messy stuff cleans up to just be 2x? minus 3. So then what I need to do is I need to figure out what that is evaluated at 4. So I say g of f of 4. Wherever there's an x, I plug in a 4. And I get 8 minus 3. What's 8 minus 3? 5. So g of f of 4 equals 5. Okay? So I'll leave that up there for a second for you guys to think about that. Can I move on to the next one? I'm going to draw a little separator here so you know which one's which. Alright, so for the next one, we're doing it the other way around. We're going to say f of g of x, okay, and now I'm going to plug in what f is right here. So remember that f is 2 times x, but instead of x, I'm going to plug in g of x plus 1. So now, wherever there's an x, I'm plugging in g of x. Okay? So on the next line, what do? Well, what is g of x? Well, g of x is this stuff right here, so I'm going to say f of x squared minus 4 is equal to the square root of x, whoops, is equal to the square root of 2 times the quantity x squared minus 4 plus 1. Okay? Now what's the next step, guys? What would I do next? Well, I'm going to have to push the 2 through the parentheses, right? So 2 times x squared is 2x squared. 2 times negative 4 is negative 8, right? And then 2 times, well, I don't multiply 2 by anything. I just tack on this plus 1, right? So then in the next line, I've got 2x squared minus 7. But remember, I'm taking the square root of this whole thing. I don't like the way that 7 looks. Not good enough. Okay. Now we're gonna figure out Now we got to evaluate that at 2. Which is funny because somehow this happens every morning. Very frustrating. It's like there's a delay in this or something. Well, I'm going to turn on my calculator because we need to evaluate this at 2, okay? So, to evaluate this at 2, I'm going to say the square root of 2, but I'm going to plug in 2 for x. I can't write it down yet, but that's what I'm supposed to do. Squared minus 7. Okay? I think it's just 1. Yeah. And that's it. Now let me see if I'm able to write stuff down yet. Alright, I think so. So what we're going to do, no, still can't write stuff down. That's so weird. Well, anyways, that's supposed to be 1. I'm going to have to stop the video, which is bizarre.